Turning now to the UK, after a tumultuous 72 hours, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has finally agreed to step down as Conservative Party leader. He will remain Prime Minister while his party chooses its new leader. He made a statement outside of 10 Downing Street a little earlier.
It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister.
The move comes after days of high drama and resignations from some of his cabinet members. So with us now is Ramy Inocencio, the foreign correspondent based in London. He's been covering this from the very beginning. All right, Ramy, so what more did we learn from Boris Johnson during that speech?
Yeah, Vlad, you know, the biggest line that came out from Boris Johnson's speech was that he said no one is remotely indispensable, and I think it struck me for the fact that he was unexpectedly humble just in that one line. But I stress just that one line because over the course of the next few minutes to several minutes that he was talking, he actually made it more about himself, and he said, I regret to not be successful. I regret to not be successful. He praised himself and his administration for how he handled the Brexit negotiations as well as a pandemic response. And he also said how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world. But as he said, quote, them's the break. So humility, none whatsoever there. I remember watching his predecessor, Prime Minister Theresa May, when she came up to that lectern in 2019 and she resigned from her job. She did choke up at that time, but here definitely Boris Johnson pushing back, remaining defiant until the end.
Yeah, he listed the many things that he thought of as his successes and none of those scandals that we have all been talking about over the last several months. It's been scandal after scandal. Partygate, sure.
Never pointed the finger at himself.
No,
in that regard, he's got a lot of similar characteristics to certain politicians here in the United States.
And you know what, too, Vlad? It wasn't just, and Ramy, it wasn't just the scandals. It was that he never really admitted to any of them.
None of them.
Until he was really put under pressure by the media. It was deny, deny, deny until you couldn't deny anymore.
About the minister who was accused of groping people.
Well, that was the most recent
And then
misstep.
it turns out, oh, I did know.
Right, exactly. But that brings me to this. I mean, it's not like scandals are new for him, and nothing seemed to stick. And even yesterday at this time, even with the resignation of two pretty high-profile ministers who went on like a public, media campaign to talk about why they're stepping down, he still insisted that he wasn't going anywhere. Something shifted in the overnight, though. What happened?
Sure. Well, it took an avalanche of resignations starting from 2 days ago from the Chancellor of the Exchequer, which is basically the head of the finance ministry. In addition, the health minister, both tendering their resignations. As you mentioned, just after the allegations came to light that the Prime Minister knew about sexual assault allegations from an MP, Chris Pincher, who allegedly groped two men last week in the few weeks prior. But that triggered what is now more than 50 resignations in his government. And we were looking through the history books to try to figure out when there might have been something even worse than this. Turns out there wasn't. The last time the level of major ministers actually resigned, at last count 14, I think it might have come up to 17 depending on what you're sourcing, was in 1932. That was 90 years ago. So this is unprecedented. So again, it took this avalanche, this tsunami, this tidal wave of people from his own side, from his own Conservative Party saying, we lack confidence in you. Integrity was a word that was floated so much in the past few days, saying that the Prime Minister lacked integrity. And they also said, look, we have to look to our own political futures. It's not just the survival of Boris Johnson, it's the survival of ourselves. In effect, saving their own skins because they have attached themselves to Boris Johnson, so now they've let him go.
And we know that, it was last month that there were by-elections and everyone was watching to see how the Conservatives would do. They're sort of lower-level elections, but positions that were thought to be, Conservative strongholds, they lost. And there was a question as to whether or not this was the public rejecting the Conservative Party. We know how ministers feel about Boris Johnson, both in his party and outside of his party. What about the people that you've been seeing on the street?
Sure. Right before Boris Johnson came out to that lectern outside of 10 Downing Street, you could hear actually clapping. Now, I'm not quite sure exactly where that was coming from. There's a big gaggle of media, of course, right there. I don't think it was from them. But there is, just down from Downing Street, there's a metal gate. A lot of people, rubberneckers, trying to get a look at what was happening there. I have to say that a lot of people probably were excited to finally see him resign. And after his short few-minute speech, there was more clapping there. I'm looking at this as sort of a kind of horrible breakup in a relationship. You might feel happiness, you might feel frustration, you might feel relief, but also fear that you might also get back into it. And I say that because even though he has said that he's going to resign, that he is resigned today, people are concerned that he might become the caretaker prime minister through the fall. And elections can happen between now and the fall. Someone else might take over, but people are thinking, you know what if he stayed? What if MP was floating? What if he put the UK into a war? What if he just bought more time to try to stay in power? So that's the fear there. So a lot of people are saying, listen, if we're going to do this, we've got to do this now. Get him out today.
Ramy, thank you.
You bet. Take care.